Good morning, good evening, everybody.
Hello, Geshe.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
From different country, India.
Okay.
India is not. India and China, they tend to get up. China here exactly 12 hours. Now in Tibet and China, they're 7:30 morning. Thank you, good morning. Anyway. We are fortunate person to opportunity to study or some practice, some meditation. Also, usually we study when we maybe 4 years. When we start 4 years we go, then they go to school, kindergartens. Maybe until we die, we start, right? By study, maybe, I think most this country, the people, until they die, they have to learn something. They want to, I want to learn something. It's good we learn many things, but then usually we learn many things to benefit for this life. Although, of course, it's good. We need to this life, successful, good things. But we study this Dharma, Buddhism is not just talking about this life, not just material things, how you fix the computer, how you fix the car, how you put that, the scientists put things together, not talking about that. We are talking about this, our mind. Usually we, in Buddhism, believe we have happiness and suffering, right? Everybody has suffering. Everybody else is not happy. But all the sufferings and happiness, where they come from? We think they all come from outside, right? We think all the problems come outside, right? All. But in Buddhism experience that they not come from outside. They make our own mind. Make our problems. But this, we study, we didn't study long term, then we didn't got to understand. Then we call karma. Karma means action. If you do good things, you create the good karma, good action, maybe helps of others, and you have good motivation to talk to some other people, other things. They create the good karma. Then you do some bad things, they create the bad karma. And when you create that good karma, bad karma, you put that influence our mind. Look at, we put some ink on the paper. Look at, we put one ink there, right? Look at that. Then when conditions come in, then wrapping that karmas, then we get the results. When we create the karma, we do the action, bad, good actions, bad actions. They create the karma, then they put in our mind. Then when the result also, when the conditions put together, then results we get. We can, deep thinking, deep checking. Even for example, we don't need to talk about karma, we just be say, our happy mind, calm down mind, how can it come? When we get angry, we develop our angry, then we are not, comfortable, we are not happy, right? And we think angry for other side. Some, maybe my wife, do something, maybe my husband do something, maybe, my boyfriend got and just that was actually terrible day, they get angry. But how they angry, how he or she, I don't know, they give you angry, then we always think, whatever I think, I say, I do this is the right? Whatever thing. Then we discuss it with others. They don't agree. They don't agree with each other. Then we get angry. You think it's true? So, for example, husband and wife, something they never actually, little arches. Then maybe some husband thinks. Then some husband have something, plan. Then maybe wife doesn't listen. Then he get angry because I have this good idea that she doesn't listen. Then maybe wife have something different. Maybe today maybe go to nice some restaurant, some beer, some nice. Maybe husband doesn't go on because they both are different. The wife thinks I think it's good because this is my best do, but husband thinks it's not good because they both different because this moment doesn't give each other. But then when they're angry, they show their very strong ego because I've read that, but he or she doesn't know. Then we, main things are our ego thinks I'm the right person. Whatever I say, what I do is right. And we doesn't like something, some people action or say, then we say, oh, he or she doesn't know what it exactly wants. Then anyway, egos behind there. Then they're doing some other things. Then we get angry, jealous, then attachment. Then you have all problems coming. You really think about this, not other outside something. Look like that. Anyway, this is our main talk about. Then we said, then what kind of mind create a karma? Now, what kind of mind is a very good mind? What is a bad mind? Then we can check the minds. Then we say, mind, then what mind? What kind of mind? Then we have the Tibetan explain all the different kind of minds. Then usually we use all the minds we have, that we didn't recognize, we didn't identify which one, same as our, you have to drive the car. There are many things they need. If one thing doesn't work, then the car doesn't go, right? The car maybe, if the light doesn't work, then the car has no light. Maybe the wall that there is a light, something missing. Some hour have many different minds. Some part minds we really need, some part we don't need. And we need to, which ones we need, which ones we don't need. Which ones we follow that minds good, which ones not good. We can, so talk about our details one by one. And then usually, 냠냠 어떤 상관없나? 아니 샘들이 무슨 토크를 했어.
So if we think from our own experience, then maybe we might be able to recognize this is what this mind is called and so forth.
그러나 밀림치네 빵망용 만용이게 미실래요. 밀림을 계셔셔나 미디가 안으로 말았어.
For example, if you talk to someone about a dream, about a dream to someone who has never dreamed, then that person will not understand about it, right?
Dreams and you say, oh, there's something to do. They don't understand what to talk about. 단지다 미실라 문이 문을 못 봤다. 댕이라 문을 그러시 나오다. 근데 용거리 근데 요래 걸지. 양용 거 알아요. 왔어.
But if you talk to the person who has dreamt many times before, then then he will understand right away. So, oh yes, yeah, I had this kind of dream, I had that kind of dream too, and so forth.
어떤데 이만가 너무 생각 남자서 마음 싫어요. 그래서 희전이 생각 남자도 마음 싫어 드레스.
So in general, there are so many different aspects of the minds.
근데 다 당연히 딱 골라먹고 올라가까지 아주 대화도 좀 간가 또 투자기다 수생에 돌아가고요. 그래서
so anyway, as I talked earlier, all the root of all the sufferings and happinesses is a mind.
아니 먼저 쇼케 야라는 고나 마마니 받지 니만 인간가 주소가 로데한테 그렇게 소소 대화용이 쳤대 누가 마음이 싫은 거고
so since early in the morning, soon after we wake up, we get up and then we do all these things throughout the day in order to achieve happiness and to eradicate sufferings, right?
그래서 텐디 받다 텐디 나도 주대 동아 주대 되게 아니 다 그래 쉬기 그다 쉬었게 아니 다 동아 뭐 세트고 그래서
So by doing that, by running around throughout the day, we can eliminate to some limit, we can eliminate the external sufferings.
아니 나도 대화라 세게 대화를 동아서 주더니 대다 샘 코로나 상황 맞아서 치료기 요런 거 말해.
So, but the inner problems, inner happiness, cannot be solved by the outside methods. It can only be solved by inner mind.
텐디가 다 텐디게 샘도 간단히 봤다 하고 다 나도 샘주기세 샘다 샘주기세 나온다. 그래서
And so, in order to understand those minds, the inside, the inner minds, that's where we're studying about the mind and mental factors here.
근데다 샘세다 조샘세 간도다 마페서 나오지 같이 조샘세 샘 조원로 찍지 샘주세다 그 요고사로 다들이요 그래서
and then there's this the primary mind, the primary mind or the main mind, and the mental factors. So the primary mind is like the general in the army, and then the secondary mind or the mental factors are like the retinues or the minds around that.
근데 샘주세들 샘주 코라서 미카가 가요. 미카가 소소 샤오카가 같이요.
And so there are different kinds of mental factors, different names of these different minds, which performs different functions.
근데 다 이게 좋은 전에 샘세라 그래 이게 좋으라고 싫어.
So the mind, is the mental, yes, the mental aspect, the main part of the mind, right? The primary mind.
근데 전화서 담보 속이라고 가려다 샤그도 왔다 그런 걸 샤는 거 지금도 대라 안다 또 샘세로 이잖아.
So for example, when you see a form, or some kind of object, so that appears to your eye, right, to your eye consciousness. So that eye consciousness is the primary mind.
다 대샤워를 때문에 대련양도 가야 말이야. 아니 링보르샤, 통통르샤, 아니 까보르샤, 마보르샤 등등이 다 생기세요 말이야. 담보 또 생기고도 지금 말이야.
So the first mind only sees the object, but it doesn't kind of discriminate or describe or and things like that. So it doesn't do that. And so first it only sees the object, and then after that, then there comes this mind thinks, oh, it is nice object, it's not very nice object, or it is a long, it's a short, or it's white or black, and so forth. And so that is the function of the mental factors.
그러니까 이게 좋은 집에 전에 샘, 이 처벌 집에 전에 샘주세 모두 막 그래서.
So by apprehending the main object is called the mind. The mind is the one that which apprehends the main object, and then then the other mind which apprehends the features of that object, like being tall, short, and so forth. The features of that object is the mental factor.
다 된되게 샘주더라 샘주납치 납치 그래서.
And so that kind of mental factor, there are 51 different kinds.
다 되나니 다 마음 나도 고야 가시요. 다 마고야 돼 마고다 또 가래 많이 그래서.
And so there are some which are needed, and there are some which are not needed. And this all will come slowly later.
근데 다 담보 고야 말다 끊어 가세요. 끊어 가면 다 조금 작은 관계 고도와다 조금 끊어 조금 끊어 고도와다.
And so then there's the first the group of the mental factors are called the 5 omnipresent mental factors. So these are the mind that's needed all the time, and that is present in the retinue of the main mind all the time, and so that's why it's called omnipresent. And so there are five in this group, the mental, omnipresent mental factors. And the first one is called feeling.
근데 소화 대행 가서 원시 나가 이식 쭉 가는 거래요. 그래서
And so this feeling, is in the retinue of all the primary minds, like the five sense, consciousnesses and the mental consciousness.
소화 세대다 그랬다. 용어 딱 지금
So the feeling, is something to experience.
그냥 남쪽이 지금 자타고 도와이나 아니 젤에 딱 그래. 딱 되고 가. 그나 그래도 자타고는 거나 젤에라 가데. 딱 가서 자타고 동원할 때니 딱 같이 되게 와서 그냥 용어도 왔어. 그래서 그래. 딱 가서 뭐 레자지 라파라 때내로 정확히 그 동화도 사비 동화지 용어도 왔어. 사비 동화. 이거 들어갔다 되내려고
So the feeling, that comes, from from the contact. So when you come into contact with the object, you can feel cold, hot, rough, smooth, and so forth, right?
대라 아니 리시도. 앞에는 미시로 가는 게 될라 해서 봐. 미시가 좀 통과할 때니 아니 지금 답삼을 지 아니 동아지야나 대화지에 나왔어. 좀 통과할 때니 어떤 일을 어디다 미시고 좋아하세요.
And for example, by seeing an object through your eye consciousness, you can feel happy, you can feel unhappy, right? By seeing certain kind of object, you feel happy. By seeing certain kind of objects, you feel unhappy. And so that feeling, comes in association, with that eye consciousness.
아니 아무도 다 돌아왔더니 다 민님한테 너무 생각 두마 다 님한테 너무 생각 대화하는 거 왔어.
And then same with the sound, like the ear consciousness. So by hearing a pleasant sound, you feel happy. And by hearing unpleasant sounds, you feel unhappy.
아니 그나 칼라야 지 주마시 모델이 뭐 양모 서비스 대화를 지르는 거 가지 딱때 주마 야고모도 생각이 뭐 생각 막가 같은 용어도 왔어.
And then same with the nose consciousness, right? So when it smells a pleasant odor, it feels happy, and sometimes with the unpleasant odors, feel unhappy.
아니 제시에라 좀 제가 때문에 다 좋아돼도 되는 거 그래서 봐.
And then with the tongue consciousness, by meeting with the a delicious taste, food, feel happy.
아니 리시라 직다 같이야 다 지금 정모 줘야 돼 되는 같이 더 동안을 하고 왔어.
And then same with the body consciousness, right? So when you come into contact with the body, a certain thing can bring a good feeling, a certain thing can bring a bad feeling.
아니 이시라는 것도 싸움도 당하는 지금들 싸움으로 당하니까 들려고 지내지. 소소 싸움도 당하고 되게 생각 맡기거든요. 생각 끼고 되는 건데 하고 그랬다. 시간이 되려고 왔어.
And then to the mental consciousness, through thinking something you feel happy, but by thinking something you feel unhappy. Right? So that happiness is also in association or in the retinue of that mental consciousness.
들리다 당하고 시발락다 들리 정해달라 간지 원시가 이식 좀 마시고 말해서 시발.
So
들리는 게 좋아하는 거예요.
So the mind, which feels, which experiences the feeling, are only these 6 different types, right? 6 different types of consciousness, the 5 sense consciousness and mental consciousness.
어디시다? 좋아하거든 납타니까 좋아서 간지 좋아서 되니까 인용을 뭐, 인용을 뭐, 내도 땅 가는 인용을 뭐로. 좋아 대화서 이제 아니 대화는 가, 된가 봐나 양주대 제발 제발 일단 도되는 등이더라는 세월 동아스. 근데 동아인데 강원 시험하는 때는 자와는 데라는 동아스로. 근데 제발야 뭐도 자와야 강원 면적이 때라니 아니면서.
So then like it says here, right? What is the defining characteristic of feeling? So it has the characteristic of experience. So the next, it's in page 16. So it has the nature of feeling, right? So so nature of experience for the feeling, and so when you when you come in contact with some kind of object, and you want to be contacted with that object, that's the the happy feeling. And when you come into contact with that object, you don't want to be contacted. You want to be separated from that object. It's the feeling of unhappiness. And then, so when you don't have any, when you don't have any wish, of being in contact or being separate from that object, it's the neutral feeling. And so when someone asks what is the feeling, then this is what how you define the feeling. So if you say feeling is feeling, then that doesn't describe much about it, right?
Someone said, "What's a cup?" How you say? How you describe it? I say.
Describe.
Describe. Somebody said, "What is a cup?" How you say?
You can describe it by its appearance or by its function. You can say that it's a thing which holds liquid, a small container that holds liquid to be drunk by someone. Or you can say it's a small cylindrical, usually a cylindrical item with an opening on one end.
And then also someone said, "What is a human being?" They say, "Human being.
So when someone asks you, what is human being? And say if you say human being is human being, then that's not the right answer.
Right. How you identify a human being? You guys?
So how do you define human being? What's the definition of human being?
A being that's able to speak.
Mashallah.
What about a parrot?
Anyway,
You gotta keep going, you gotta add to it, you gotta add to the definition.
So when you say definition, it has to be on, it has to prevail from the both sides. So someone who is able to speak is a human being. If you are not able to speak, then you're not a human being. So it becomes like that, So if that's how you define, then then the person who is in mother's womb doesn't know how to speak. So then you will have to say, that being is not human being.
Sometimes they talk also parrots. One holiness is here, one parrot, and he's very good feeling. He got food, and he said, "Oh man, very good man, masters." 나도 다 배배배샤 쉬우나라 맛이 되고 그러시나 봐서 몰라 그래. 너
So it's in the scriptures, the definition of human being is given as the someone who falls in the type of being able to speak and understand.
어디 다들랑 오게 나비 편시 다 이바데 건소라서 다들 미신으로 있는 시세.
So we talked about the feeling last time also, right? So now we're going to go to the next one, which is the discrimination, right? The second omnipresent mental factor.
다 이번 미신중 모은 임박기들 레스. 바로 딜레 미신중 선에 제시한
So that's page 20.
디디 시라시는 선에서 다 안에 이 원놈 시선 디디 따이 그래 이제 열 강조 있다 시바시는 거 선에서 예지 왕보지 납시선 예지 보고 아니 왕보지 아니 시바 관을 손 대선 되고 그랬어 영원한 시선 이제 되고 그랬어 디디 시바시는 영원한 시선 디발라 때문에 아니 딱 이게 샤와데 시바시는 되지라 아니 내시나 그래서 영원 오더를 저한테 죽상을 아니 대오더를 대기한도 가지 이게 시바시는 되지 그래서 어떤 거라고 뭐 니들이 제가 오더는 대대서
What is?
영원 넘시든 니들 이팀 등문 세만선 봐 들으려고 그래서
Consciousness power and primary consciousness apprehends common sign of the logic, just below the response.
Yeah.
그거라 이게 단어라든 니들 투주도 되더라. 또 방금 예우지는 못했다 이제.
So the discrimination, right? So regarding the entity of discrimination, the compendium of knowledge says, question. So what is the defining characteristic of discrimination. And this is the response. It has the characteristic of knowing upon aggregation. It has the entity of apprehending the sign and apprehending the mark, through which one designate as an expression to objects of perceptions and hearings, differentiations, and knowledge. So it's just as it has been said above, it is the knower that upon the aggregation of three objects, the object, the sense power, and primary consciousness, apprehends the uncommon sign of an object. Really? So anyway, so discrimination, in short, it means, it's the mind, that kind of designates, the object, right? And so that, the designates an expression to the object of the perception. So by saying that, oh, this is tall, this is short, this is good, this is bad, and so forth. And then it says when discrimination is divided, there are two. There's the apprehension of the sign and apprehension of a mark. And then it says the apprehension of a sign is an apprehension of an uncommon sign of an object which appears to non-conceptual consciousness. And then it says the uncommon sign of an object which appears to conceptual thought is the mark, is in mark. And so uncommon sign of an object which appears to non-conceptual consciousness is the apprehension of a sign, and then uncommon sign of an object which appears to conceptual thought is the apprehension of a mark.
Correct? Okay. Maybe hard to say.
So what would be the example of a non-conceptual consciousness, a non-conceptual thought?
A non-conceptual consciousness is a consciousness that perceives the object.
Example.
Oh boy.
Did you ask non-conceptual consciousness?
It's a non-conceptual consciousness. And he's asking you to give example of conceptual consciousness.
Conceptual? No, you're giving conceptual, he's giving non-conceptual.
Non-conceptual is to see it directly.
Yeah, example. Give me an example.
This is to understand emptiness, to be able to perceive emptiness directly.
You don't have any other things? You don't have any other things?
Daily example.
Daily example.
We have all things, just I can think out here.
Anything in the room that you can see.
I think that's a conceptualization. We're labeling. We're labeling. Oh, okay. So when I see this microphone, the instant I see it, before my mind labels it, is non-conceptual.
So what kind of consciousness is that? What kind of consciousness is seeing the microphone?
The eye consciousness.
So you have to add that too.
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay. Thank you for bearing with me. So it's the eye consciousness that directly sees it before I label it. The instant I see it. Is that correct?
I think you got it. Okay, now you give me this.
Yeah, so the conceptual consciousness.
Following his or just my own label?
Your example.
The image in my mind that follows.
Yeah, go ahead.
The image in my mind that follows when my eye consciousness perceives Geshe, the generic image I have of him in my mind is he is this and he is that and all of those concepts.
그래, 저랑의 로릭 단치사. 전화 통과라 대통령 이제 저랑 대지 세요라 대지 세 선대라 다 들렸더니
삼성 똑바로 와다는 같이 대신은 저분들로 강하게 받대 아니 또 맞았어. 대신은
Are you saying the
So-
image or the consciousness that sees the image? Which is the example you're asserting?
The consciousness that sees the image.
Yeah, just need to clarify.
But wait a second, the image. Is that something other than the mental consciousness?
따라서 같이 대신은 저분 이것도 대신은 저분 생일로 강하게 받대 또 맞았어.
so any kind of mind that apprehends the object related with its image is a conceptual mind.
아니 따라 때는 게임으로 강하게 받대 또 맞았어.
And then also any kind of mind that is generated by the reasonings or the signs, and it is also a conceptual mind.
그리고 그래서 오생하고 강하게 나간가 또 맞았어. 오생하.
So all the five sense consciousness are non-conceptual consciousnesses.
그래서 다다 하루에서 저 민기 몇시치지 이게 나시치지가 그렇고 내려도 지나고 말해서
And so when you ask for example, you can just say eye consciousness. Eye consciousness will be the sense consciousness, right? So that will be a non-conceptual consciousness. You don't have to say the eye consciousness will seize the microphone instantly and so forth. You don't have to say that. You just say eye consciousness. That would be the example.
it's more easy, right? You say just my eye consciousness, my nose consciousness, okay? 다 되지. 던지던 강도 시발라 똑바로 미니면 저 말해서
So when you are divided into that, in that way, that's, every kind of mind is included, is combined into these two conceptual and non-conceptual minds.
던지다 똥을 먹을 지에는 내시 가는 바다는 제만선 봐. 똥을 먹을 지에는 내시 가는 바다가 안에 잡아서 가라 그랬어.
And so any kind of the discrimination, that's conceptual. Conceptual is the mark, is the apprehension of a mark, and any kind of discrimination that's non-conceptual is the apprehension of a sign.
Why do they use the qualifier uncommon? Why is that important?
정말 다섯 가지
너무 많이 봐서 나
And just say unique.
나 코로나 주보사를 빼나
Yes,
아니
this one has it.
저거나 지나
Oh, okay.
코로나 때문에 그냥 주부 때문에 왔어.
So it means unique, So
Okay.
야, 같은 거
Not sure.
unique,
All right, thank you. Sometimes I get caught up on the words.
다 되니 하나 되니가 늦시더니 죽사 역할을 가니까 죽어서나 아니 통화를 했더니 이건 통화를 했더니 죽어랬어. 아니 투발을 했더니 죽어랬어. 쉐라시 남르시 받다 시행 죽다 시 말하고 시행을
And then it says the base of the engagement for these two types of discrimination are perceptions, hearing, differentiation, and knowledge.
와. 어디 다 통화하다 다 통화는 에피지 통화에 다니고 만속 의식이 빼나 또수 우리가 시야는 무슨 통화이라고 가버리 마버리 나버리 리모트 통화도 이제 다니냐고 그러고 그거 내가 통화하세요. 나머지
So the perception, is seeing, right? So mostly that's seeing. So the perception of seeing involves designating an expression to object manifestly perceived.
그거 저도 그게 소소 깔프이나 근데 내 바깥 그래서 나도 통화되는 것도 다니자 도로
So for example, when you see your car, by seeing it with your eye, then you can say, oh, this is my car, right?
아니 다들 잡아도 가면 가지고도 대표도 가서 무슨 통화를 나도 다니 갖고 자 도로
So all these things, like our book and so forth, by seeing it directly with our eye consciousness, we can label it as so and so.
아니 투바세한테 다 이치지 투바라 때니 원하는 인사를 해서 당연히 말해서
And then the second one is the hearing involves designating an expression, independence in hearing credible words. So by hearing such and such things, then we say, oh, it must be such and such.
그리고 그냥 남도 투바만 딱 그래. 로로 잡아 때는 남도 얘네들 요사는 남도 산로 깨도 와서 그래서 다 도배는 거로
So by hearing, the object, by hearing, the name of the objects, right? You can imagine, oh, it must be like this, must be like that, right?
뭐든지 따라나 남도 레지는 열에서 남도 랍다면 주도 수직 레지는 동도야
And so, for example, we say there is karma and its results, right? But do any of us see the karma and its results?
만도 이치에 산지가 송라 때문에 어다 레지를 요래서 만도 이치지 때문에 박진 어다 근다다 산지 송제 렌도도 만도 이치니 요러스.
So first, we believe in the karma and its results because it was taught by Buddha, and then later, not only that, but we also check it, with the reasonings, by using the logical reasons, and then we find out that it is really true, and that way we believe, in karma and its results. Right?
된장도 요래지 나도 저도 이치사기 때문에 로네 내들이 이사를 주도 삼수 용어도 해서 어떤 되는지를 낳고 그래서.
And so, by reading kind of books that you believe in, by reading that book that you believe in, and then getting the information from that book, and we think, it is like that, it's like that. We believe it's like that, and so forth, right? So that is from the belief.
다 셔러셔 받으면 따라때니 도나테니 높아지러와 따라때니 도나테니 높아서.
And then the differentiation involves designating an expression to an object ascertained in dependence on signs.
다 사이드 빼나 체차리 빼나 남소 이거 만도사 빼나 그냥 강바 발이 파종 강바 이게 강야 도와요 있나 근데 남소 도와요 말라 때니 태워라 매워 가도 하고 도버려서.
So from the sign we can come to see or come to understand the existence of such and such object, right? For example, when we see smoke coming up from the roof of the house, we don't see the fire, but from the smoke coming from its roof, we know there's a fire inside the house, right? Can we come to understand that from that sign? From the sign of seeing a smoke, you can come to understand that there is fire in the house, right?
나라 파인 통고가 말아서 있나 도와요 때니 거기서 싸움 도와요 따라들이지.
So of course we don't see the fire, but we see the smoke coming from its roof, and because of that sign of the smoke coming out of the roof, we think or we believe that there is fire in the house, right?
따라들이지. 그 가마데 몰라 내서 가르나 도와요 도와서 이제 계획으로 뭐 던지더라 아니 셔라라 셔라시다 남아들어 셔라시 봤어요.
So we can say there must be a fire in the house because we see smoke, right? And so from that reason, you can come to know that there is the fire there. So that's the differentiation.
아니 남의 시바데 딴데 이셰들 해야 땅에서 되게 되다 땅에서 되게 되다 내 가지 내가 이셰 야를 왕셰란 거예요. 그래서 내에서 해야 또 받아 간간히 그래서.
And so the fourth one is knowledge involves in designating an expression to objects ascertained directly. And so here it can be both consciousness, both kinds of consciousnesses, like a sense consciousness or mental consciousness.
어떻게 다 되는 거야? 당근 받으면 아테라 대난 선만들만 단위가 선만들만 이셔를 어떻게 신 거야?
And then again from the treasure of knowledge, express discrimination as being twofold. This is the apprehension of a sign with regards to an object, and the apprehension of a sign with regards to convention.
다들 담보 에서 대난 선만들만 가르쳤나 아니 단위는 선만들만 공보다 세보다 마보세 가지고 세고 시대니까 아니 대난 선만 네 단위는 선만들 맞지 아니 림본다는 더 보모 아니 딱 아니 봐 배봐 말속으로 가가지고 대라 아니 단위는 선만들 대난 선만들 맞어 대리나도 삼세 당국들 시발 용어다 되더라고 해서
아무도 되더라.
아무도 되는 거 아무도 단위는
되는. 이거도 되는.
대난 선만들 단위 어르시 대난 선만들 단위는 선만들.
So then it says the apprehension of a sign with regards to an object means to apprehend it through individually, distinguishing the object's particularities such as blue, yellow, and so forth. And then the apprehension of a sign with regards to a convention means to apprehend it through individually distinguishing the conventions, particularities, as when one thinks this is a man, this is a woman, and so forth.
네, 어떻게 담이 되게 좀 났다. 대시 단위들이 벌써 들어가고 단위들 다 가가는 것도 되게 양듯이지 다 나중에 다들라 뭐 대양듯이 주에 따로 나라서 오시에 나도 이식을 들어가는 데 그만 남은 거 그러고 말했어.
And then it says further, when discrimination is differentiated in terms of its supports, there are 6. So this is again talking about the 5 sense consciousnesses and then the one mental consciousness.
일단 늘 맞는 의미에서 고문도 같이 대고 제주당 진짜 제주리가 relevant 라고 기분도 달라나 되게 도는 시험도 하고 있습니다.
So there's no need to talk about it one by one. We already talked about it.
이거 대오들 막 가시다 자체 주세요는 지금 미돈 레반들을 고모가 잘못했고 고 강아를 라고 합니다. 물어서 유샤스와 대오들 먹어도 지금 제일 먼저가 주주들과 야를 먼저가 들려서 뭐보다 되는 내가 기분도.
And then also it's a discrimination in terms of objects of observation. There are 6. Like reasoned discrimination, unreasoned discrimination, and so forth. So discrimination of the small and the vast and so forth. So I don't think we have to go through that either. Not much to really talk about it.
저거는 니시대에 가지마다 좀 하고 도 시바 모두 날다 단계 같은 게 단계 그 나무나 딱 등이지 도 시바 대가 니시라 그랬거든요. 이 집으로 수순 게 등이더라. 니시스.
So anyway, so you know what is the discrimination now, right? So the discrimination, which is able to designate the objects. So this is tall, this is short, and so forth. So that's the discrimination.
이 집으로 수수지 이 집다 이와 가가 소등들은 된다 시스로.
And so the mind, which kind of describes or apprehends that object, with its characteristic. Saying that this is tall, this is short, this is good, this is bad, and so forth. So that's called discrimination.
Yeah.
But also included in discrimination is just the very simple perception of like the distinction between colors. So which has no like association with signs, with conventional terms or anything. So like if my eye just sees the different colors in this room, it doesn't necessarily have to think like that's red, that's blue. Just by virtue that they're different from each other, it distinguishes them, it discriminates between them. So then discrimination is not always like associated with convention or signs or
whatever. 딱이라 민다도한테는 천담이라 통보라 천담이라 통화상 되는 그런 게 지금 되는 다디 셀브레이션 디마브레이션 야와체되고 말았어. 그런데다 생기 통화상 그런데다 야와 체로 올라서 그런다 디마브레이션 디셀브레이션 거 야와체로 올라서.
다 단위에서 해야 되는데 그래서 양아치 세분도 쓰려 봐 세분이 단위 따고 그러고 되게가 되는 단위 독신에 들었다는 듯이 들라고 그러고. 너네 가서 책임이라는 나는 세분 마법 가는 거 세분 간거 세니라 단위라고 그러고.
So they all have this, the name, right? The convention of the name. This is called yellow, this is called red, and so forth. So it has to have some kind of name in order for your mind to be able to distinguish, saying that this is yellow, this is red, and so forth.
So for the baby who doesn't know the name of the colors, they don't see different colors or what?
동그래. 그 단위가 동말. 단위. 단위도 자 동말. 그래. 내가 마법 나그래서 그러다. 마법 두스러 와라 마법 나그래더니 단위도 자 동말. 그러니까 마법 나보고 그 가지고 하는 거였어.
그거 뒤지도 두셔야 말았어.
두셔야.
근데 두셔는 이제 단위 자시고 말해서 그러.
그래서. 난 세리 단위 자시고 말해.
내 가운데 단위 자시고. 대가우레 대마우레서 단위 자시고 말해.
네, 단위 자식이더라 가면은 가고 세니라 세리가 단위 자고 드린 단위 자식 말했어. 세번 가고 마보다 그까지 무슨 동화도 내가 단위로 자고 봤어.
So you don't have to know the name, but you see the red, you see the blue, you see,
Yeah.
So the babies do see that different colors, but of course they don't know the name, It's called this when they see the blue. They don't know it's called blue, of course, they don't know that. But for the discrimination, in order to have discrimination, you don't have to know the names, know the conventions.
마분 두스를 와라 마분에서 나가서 거기 다니는 자식 말이야. 그래서 마분 도대도 마분이었어. 깔로하고 마분 나가서.
So, what is the red? What you see what you see is the the red that you see is the red. Yeah. So, red is not a name or the convention that you label it to. It's the red that you see.
So I mean, there's a reason why it's divided into two, right? When discrimination is divided, there are two. There's the apparition of sign and apparition of mark. Apparition of sign is the case in which it's the apparition of an apprehension of an uncommon sign to a non-conceptual consciousness.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
So at
like
that point,
seeing,
there
that's
is
like
no
just
labeling.
seeing the color
Right.
red,
So
but
it's just
not
differentiating
saying like that's red or knowing
without the
it as
label,
red.
without the appellation, right? So
Yeah.
then the mark would be where you would then have an appellation where you would be involving the actual expression or the conventional term, right? Because that's involving conceptual thought there, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I mean, that's what I was thinking. But toward the end, we were saying more like discrimination is like the involvement with putting conventions on things or discriminating between things. When it seems like the definition has two levels to it. One which is like, I mean, to use a modern terminology, like biologically ingrained in you as an organism, like you can't help but see different colors, even if you don't know that they're, have names or whatever.
So right
your
now
eye sees different colors.
Yeah, but you're referring right now to the treasure of knowledge explanation, right? As being twofold: apparition of a sign with regard to an
Yeah,
object
that's right.
and apparition of a sign with regard to
Yeah.
a convention. So if you read carefully the first, the apparition of a sign with regard to an object, it doesn't mention that it has to have a conventional expression. It just says
Yeah.
object's particularities, such
Yeah,
as
that's
blue,
what
but from
that's
the
what I'm-
entity of blueness, not the label of blue.
That's what I'm trying to emphasize, is that actually it's not the case that discrimination is always associated with some term,
Label.
some convention. Yeah, there is also non-conceptual discrimination.
많이 가져갔어.
Dogme.
또봐.
Dogme.
동네,
야, 또봐도 또면 뛰어 당분간 로소하고 또봐도 또면이 청소가 당분간 마셨잖아. 근데 나 간지 노동으로 올라가는데 늦이 나갔나? 딱이 뒷부로 소소한 얘기들아 늦이라고 그래서.
So anyway, so in short, when we talk about the discrimination, of course, when you go into a detail, you can go into all this conceptual, non-conceptual, conventional, object, and so forth. But in general, what is discrimination? This is the mind that is able to distinguish the features of the object.
도도세도.
So that's
가서 내가 대징에는 또봐 또면 어떻게 온 거예요? 와서.
and of course, and then the mind, which distinguishes the features of the object. That can be a conceptual mind, that can be a non-conceptual mind. So, in relation to that, then there will be different definition again also.
근데 대제달라야 다니라 아니 그런 늦이 잡다가 아니 다니는 거 딱고 나한테 일하면서 담는 거예요.
And then there's going to be also an apprehension of sign with regards to the object and with regards to the convention and so forth.
오케이. 다음도 그만 마무리는 가서 뭐 고백을 했을 때 내가 또 늦이자를 가면 이 집부터 소소한 얘기 가지고 집안에도 대를 늦이라 버리 되는 또 들리라고 그래서.
So if we go into all these details, it will confuse us so much. And so, but anyway, in short, that's the definition of the discrimination, that which is able to distinguish this object, the features of the object.
소화돼 가리라. 늦이라는 건 소화서 느려라냐. 늦이다 느려라는 거니까 소소한 식단하고 그래서.
And so when you ask what is the feeling, what is called feeling and what is called discrimination, then you should be able to tell this is called discrimination or this is called feeling.
we finished all that there is I don't know which was that is. Yeah.
So- Following actually on Andy's question, I'm going to take his side, play the devil's advocate. So then when it talks about the apparition of a sign with regard to an object versus apparition of a sign with regard to a convention. So with regard to an object, it lists as examples such as blue, yellow, and so forth. In regards to a convention, it lists as examples when one thinks this is a man, that is a woman. But is it possible for the apparition of a sign with regard to an object to be distinguishing the object's particularity as this is a man or that is a woman? Like, what is the difference? Because in eventually you were using the word ten, right? I caught that in terms of object, and then tanya for convention. So ten means more like the meaning, no?
Yeah.
Right. So then, can those examples like can we have a more?
Because the ten said the ten they are on 유라시 거라. 유라시.
그렇지.
한 단에 said the minda.
민감하다. 다 내가 세보려고 그랬어. 아니 다 가족 세보려고 그랬대. 세보.
또 배샤들아 맞지기. 배샤들아 맞지기. 또 단에 라더니 안데 said the 개별의 교화를 나 거기 때 단라더니 내 뭐버스 디 서비스가 다들 단라데 뭐버스에서 세게 잡아. 단라 딜라더니 교화를 되는 개별에서 라는 같이 갔어. 디그레스.
되나.
그 뭐 어디 단에들라더니 개별의 교화샤다. 딜라 개별의 딜라 교화를 해서 내가 시대 얘기 강들라더니 단라더니 딜라더니 뭐라고 딜라 서브라고 나도 또 뭐라고 서라 찾더니 딜라더니 교화를 개별을 해서 디그레스.
대그러면 내리 제대로 본보라 그래. 내리 제대로 본보라 그러나 그 고자쇼 가더라. 내리 제대로 본보라 그래. 내리 제대로 본보라 그래서 곤란한 가지. 그리고 그 샤위체. 샤바들이 제대로 본보라 그래. 저 본을 다 이게 말이야. 어디 콘도
어디라든 지겠어요. 내가 말하는.
어디로 지는 거야. 다 내리라 그래. 콘도 버리다 콘도 본보다 다니 고자던 가는 거. 이제 그만 이게 샤웨 거 샤와시다. 샤와다. 샤위체로 그거 가시고. 된. 내가 본발라 그랬어. 너 본발 내가 지금 본발라도 그 마음이 이러고 샤위체는 뭐예요?
So, and the object, with regards to the object, is called object because of its function. So, the such and so who does such and such is called man. Who does such and such does, like such and such is called woman, like that. So in that way, then you can use the example of this is a man, this is a woman, that is a woman for the object also. With regards to an object also.
어제는 다 대오들 마음을 하는 것도 내 잠시 가지고 그만 하고 했어. 그래. 이 주의 공부세 가지고 가지. 또 니시다리 가는 나타 이 집으로 수순 영영 시방을 그렇지도 대는 듯이라 그래서.
So anyway, so in short, so that which distinguishes the feature of the object is called discrimination.
다 제발인데 내가 나와 소소 썼는데 양쪽으로 놓고는 야 주마 도파에는 양도 도파 지적으로 들어와. 간이 나서.
But if you want to know in more detail, then you can study all these things and read. And if you have any doubts or questions, then you can bring it up in the next time in the class, and then we can all discuss about that.
그래서 때그 샤바시다고 말을 샤바때 때 말하시는 거는 가다 하셨는데 이제 그 밑에 다 전부 개매라서.
So because of different, little slight difference in the function, it's given a different name. Otherwise, there's no big differences.
삼종 예지자리, 삼종을 딱 샤위자리, 삼종 명기자리로 들고 가지고 하는 거.
Sometimes with regards to the name, sometimes with regards to the function, sometimes with regards to the perceptions, it's given a different names.
뭐 다들 그 대신 다 있어. 단 대신 따로 선반으로 있어. 선반 뭐 그러셨어.
And so now, so we have completed the discrimination. Now we're going to go to the next one, which is the intention. Right?
다들 너무 기대래 생각하시나 생각만 되시지래 다 교화담을 교화를 맡은 딸래 딸래서는 무슨 놀래서
This is regarding the entity of intention. The companion of knowledge says, question, what is intention? Response, it is a compositional mental action of the mind. It has the function of engaging the mind in virtue, non-virtue, or unspecified. And so this is, again, what we call the action or karma.
다 나다 주되지 샘 열라 요신 거라시 세주실라다 샘실레스 단데 세주 강는 또 체중 되게 들어와
So it is the person?
세주 차가는 단데 또 체중 되게 내가 체중을
So So just as it has been said above, the mental factor which arouses, and moves the mind, that is concomitant with it to an object is called intention. So this is one of the most important mental factor among all the 51 mental factors.
샘 관가 얘는 쭉 들어왔다 네 가래 주버려 네 가래 돼 뭐해서 네 밖에요.
So the mind, being able to engage in an object, is because of this intention, because of this mental factor.
그다음 또 가면 짜 지금 지발했어. 다 대고 짜 라운드 가 전주 대노시가 먼저 시바 일라 라운드 쭉쭉 되다 내렸어.
또 벌써?
짜줘야 짜줘요. 맞아 되고 그 라운드 거는 줄 됐지 말이야. 시반 네가 시바 간가 아니 이게 라운드가 쭉쭉 내렸어.
So just like the magnet, pulls any kind of metal, without any control, so just like that, this mind, that the intention is the mind, is the type of mental factor that automatically makes all our minds to engage into its objects. So because this is this mind that gives the power to the minds to be able to engage in its objects. And their objects. So this mind creates the good actions and the bad actions, and so it's through this mind that many different kind of actions are created. Says this is said to be the principle among all the mental factors. It is taught that any mind or mental factor is an object due to the power of this mental factor. For example, just as the iron is helplessly drawn by a magnet, the mind helplessly engages an object due to this mental factor intention. So when intention is divided, when the intention is divided in terms of its basis, there are 6. So again, this is related to the 5 sense consciousness and 1 mental consciousness. And so, for example, the eye consciousness being able to engage in this object, that power being able to engage in this object is given by this mental factor, the intention. And so, because of this mind, one is able to engage in the object, and then through engaging in the object, then the feeling, the discrimination, is able to designate such and such, and then feeling is able to experience good, bad, neutral feelings, and so forth. It says, this intention is mental action. In general, there are 2 types of actions that are intentions and intended actions. Somewhere similar. So the actions that are intention and intended actions. So, 삼부당신배. 그래서 내가 60배까지 생각이
60년 내가도 아무 내가 죽고 되고 삼도지로 대라니 생각이지. 다 되게 근다 삼도 되게는 다 샤워를 주는지 제대로 대라니 삼면에서.
Like in the treasure knowledge book below, it explains it. What should I say?
네.
The intention is mental action that produced by our actions of body and speech.
So
Page 23, done, design.
yeah.
저도 원래 내가 니가 내가 때릴 때는 내가 생각이 뭐
어, 네.
제일 내가 그래 시스템마다 좀비 내가 그 예수의 지스 다 되는 작아나 삼벨에다 생을 정확하게 나타나더라고.
네.
생벨에서도 삼모 다 되는 것이 다 고치체도 내 제공등한 로우선 다티 삼모도 끝나는데 다 뭐는 고마지않네 티 내가 샤워치는 되나 삼벨에서.
So the difference between this, the actions that are intention and intended actions is like the thought you had before engaging in action. So it's saying that, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. So that thought is the first one. And then with that thought, then when you engage in that action, so in that action, so the thought during that time when you're engaging in action is the second one, the intended action. And says it is just as it has been said in the treasure of knowledge, there are intention and that produced by it. The intention is a mental action that produced by it are the action of body and speech.
다 뒤에 사람들한테 되게 또 내게와다 내게와다 또 싸우면서
So with that, there comes this the creation of the good or virtuous actions and then non-virtuous actions.
Does this mean that intention is unintentional?
Somebody might have checked this.
그래서 싸우면
Some should check it. Some should match
Because
it.
intention itself,
Some should match it.
intention itself is an action, and then the result, the action that follows after that intention is the intended action. So then is the act of intention itself the intention that is the action, not intentional? Like, is there an intention for that? Otherwise, it seems like there is, will be forever, you know, ad infinitum intention for intention for intention, or that intention is unintentional. Like
선배가 삼바세요. 선배 삼바 열어서 어떻게 하세요? 변화 담보기 뒤쳐고 삼바 좀 물어. 뒤쳐고 삼바 줘라. 필라드는 내 최고 삼바 영화지 삼바 열어서. 디센비기 삼바데. 다 담보 내 최고 삼바 줘라. 내기 다 자와 최고서 삼바 줘라. 난 자와 최고서 삼바 줘라. 내내 삼바 담아서 디 권한테 삼바 줘라.
그때 걔는
대가 죽죽이 디 삼바데 삼중이 삼바 줘라.
된지 삼 중이데 누마 소속을 내가 딱 생각을 가셔서 대때는 들어서 말아 아니 아들 제가 누구 삼선택이 와지 대할 때는 어떤 지원 샤워를 넣을 수 있거든요. 그때는 들어서 말
So when you meet with the condition, then you have this thought of doing that, and then with that thought, then you do it. So that thought of doing, comes not through having the intention to have that thought to do it,
Yeah.
but by meeting with the condition.
So then we can say that intention is an unintended action.
삼바지라, 삼바지 때는 마산데 저하지랬어요. 대 삼바지라, 대 삼바들라, 대 삼바는 게 삼보선 삼바지라, 대 삼바는 대 내려져서는 대 뭐라든 공라 삼바지가 말아.
대사만 다 그가 그때는 들어서 꼭 두고
네. 그러다 마산데 저하랬어.
I don't know.
그런 삼바지라,
Yeah.
삼바데 마산데 저하랬어.
I don't know. Maybe they just, the condition come. Maybe we are really, some impulse. For example, you can example first. What is that? We have no plan.
Yeah.
Big plan or something. Instead, okay, I have to go. Something to do. We have no plan. But this is something maybe we have some influence, some people, then some condition. They say, okay, I have to go. A little bit, moment we think about I have to go. Then we really walk, then 그럼 삼일에 들어와. 같이 되니 저도 같이 알아봐. 마스터벨 알아봐.
Yeah. No, I'm just curious because in Western philosophy, this topic, intention, you can buy whole book people arguing about only this.
pena 나눠서 pena 영도와 대리군다 칼라 pena 투바 소고 삼에 삼사지야 바와만 고대대 연구를 왔어. 뭐 대리가 바꾸나 아마데 공부나 칼라 투바 소고 인사네 삼사지. 대리사 삼도 가방을 상가서 다들 저는 고대로 와. 대리 삼도 간지래요 그래서. 다 대리도 지나 칼라시만 먹고 사네. 다 대리성도가 다 가서 먹고 사서자. 다 대리 특발 야 없는 것을 배나. 다 되는다고. 깨시만 먹고 이래 돼 삼슬래요.
there is some sort of
there
is some sort somebody go mara.
다 대리 삼발이 빠지 거는 말 가지 다 깨는 거 그러고. 깨는 어다 가성에 배나 지기지 메지도 보셔야 이제 바다 지기지. 다 대리 빠지 또 봐야 하고 삼을.
또 드림 분한 또 보통 거 somebody 알아.
삼바지.
어디 somebody 저래.
삼바지 샤워를 가라.
저래 말해.
샤워를 그래.
저라.
네.
사람들이 가서야.
somebody 저라.
일일이
레레레레.
somebody는 actions
셈벨 셈벨
저라. 자와인자도
자와의 제중에
저 중에 somebody 거라.
대제중에 다 듣게 먹어라 봐. 다 오늘 가서
somebody 거라고 말했어. 자와 제중 자와 있는 거 자와가 중중에 싸가지 거라. 저기 다 나가서 다 삼바서야 되면서 저를 중중에 거래서 거라서. 거라. 거라 대 자와는 들어 중중에 되는 삼바지 거라. 아, 근데 삼바디 자와이나 들어 중중에 삼바시 되지 거라.
다 되려나 가서 단 콜단 깨나 시당 이미 바샤도 깨나 먹을 쳐서만 같이 대 고다 들려. 이제 그런 게 아니라 내 삼보고 삼바지 같이 먹이는 거는.
So when you think in that way, right? Then, you can debate like those people who have no better things to do, right? Not just anyway. So yeah. So but in general, when you think about it, right? Like say, Geshe was giving an example of a mother, thinking of preparing a noodle for dinner tonight, and she thinks, oh, I'm going to have, going to prepare noodle for dinner tonight. And that thought, where did it come from? Did you have a thought before that to have that thought? Or you can say, yeah, because because you can say, oh, the thought, we had rice yesterday, so let's have noodle today. So that thought came from that condition, which thought, okay, we had already had rice yesterday, so I'm going to have noodle today, like that.
The condition of raw.
So that's more like condition.
So this one, the reason why the intention is so debated so frequently is because in Christian societies, one of the principal idea that underlies all, the way of thought of those societies is the idea of free will. We all have the freedom to choose what we are going to do. So in that way, the intention is we have the responsibility for that intention. But then some philosophers beginning maybe 200 or 300 years ago started arguing that more like this. No, the intention isn't completely under your control. Some of the intention has to do with conditions.
Yeah.
So if a person is grows up in poverty around nothing but crime, can we hold them responsible for being a thief or something like that? So the issue becomes where the control or responsibility for actions should fall, where you draw the line. So it sounds like this explanation is more confluence between two things.
Let me give you some other example. There is something
So yeah, same as what you were saying, you should have given the same example. But like different example, it's like, oh, because I can get so many things without working hard if I just go to steal. You can think that also that could be the condition for you to allow and make you to steal. Because you want to have all these things without working hard. And then other condition is like because you are very hungry, you don't have anything to achieve. The only way is to steal it and so forth. So those can be the condition.
아니 나도 다 배나 배사 로브정 배는 남의 줄로는 제도 사마를 가리 지야해서 나도 대표적 뜻으로 왔어.
And then same with the intention to study Buddhism or study the scriptures and so forth. Where did that intention came from?
아니 지금 남의 생배가 지금 랍조라든지 안경 먹고 대는 어떤 나올 시작이 되었잖아.
Could be because somebody said a lot about it, a lot of good things about it. Oh, you should study Buddhism, you should study scriptures, and because of that, then you have this intention of studying Buddhism.
뭐 마보 다 마보가는 너 그다 매년 가실까지 나와서라야 다 메시지 가래 강의쇼나 지금 강의나 동네지가 답시 요래 그래서 또 쌍고 요래서 와 나가 제가이나.
And so some people think that if you become a Buddhist, then you will have this potential to bear any kind of difficulties.
가래 들이 싸움들 가지 때 소수 남의 주체인데 소수 상무 말하는 남의 주체란 말이다. 무슨 탐식에 말 들어와 소수 말은.
And so then, other than thinking or putting thought into into the place, there's no other practice in our Buddhism also, right?
얘는 다 들이 끊어도 되는 아버 제거도 사람들 끊어도 수지에 쳐서나 다 아무나 아무도 뒤서 마시. 야만은 지금 소수 때문에 동화시 돼. 다 들이 삼수대 양아서 가래 생겨내 레바세나 일단 그 좋아지면 다 해. 요.
The Kendra.
어때? 걔 다 생겨내 레바세.
So again, if you were asked that condition, which allows you to have that intention, is that action that are intentions or not? Again, then you can still discuss about that.
But in general, this way of explaining intention, I think is more like, at least for me, when I hear it and I think about it, I feel we are just really fortunate and lucky to be able to hear these kind of teaching, because in that sense, like, even having the motivation, the intention to study or to practice those things really comes down to the conditions that are there. Just like whatever conditions you are lucky enough to be born in or to bump into. And so in that sense, like, it's not so much that you have it's not like you yourself pulled yourself up and said, go and study that. It's kind of like all of the things coalesced in the right time to allow the thought, I would like to study Buddhism to occur. So in that sense, it's like a little bit less, like the idea of free will that we have in Western culture isn't as prominent. It's not like you were just magically by yourself because of your own valor chose this. It's like everything came together to bring you there.
So which would be, pointing the difference between the mistaken sense of the I as an independent, permanent, partless, single, all those kinds of beliefs about the I, which would lead to a free will where one is independently has the willpower and the power to be able to do that, versus that which is based on the Buddhist philosophy of the new self.
But it's like really subtle. I think we need to just think about it a lot, because you still have responsibility for your actions in Buddhism. So it's finding the place where, like, although it's not like I just chose by myself to be who I am or where I'm at, but still I have the choice what I do, from moment to moment. It's like figuring out the balance between the two.
But the balance that then lies on the responsibility that we have then from Buddhist perspective is actually towards the future, isn't it? Because every action that we create now, the result of that is going to be born in the future, right? So that's what we have the responsibility for. What's happening to us now, we have no control, right? We already created the actions in the past, and as we don't have the the control to be able to control. It's already done. It's a done deal. The milk is already spilled, right? So then where we have the responsibility is how we're acting now to control what's going to happen to us in the future. But anyway, what I want to actually point out was, if we look at just the definition that is given in the response of intention, then it might make the point, the point of your question new. Because it is a compositional mental action of the mind, has having the function of engaging the mind in virtue, non-virtue, or the unspecified. That is the definition, right? Mm-hmm. And so then when you talk about was intention itself, an unintentional intention, well, you get a definition. Is it having the function of engaging the mind in virtue, non-virtue, or the or the unspecified? If so, it's an intention. If not, it's not intention.
데이터는 제일 많아요. 뭐 어디라 내가데
뭐라
어디라
뭐 체리를 써.
제이더라. 가르카르티.
삼베세.
그래.
삼베세.
얼마든 샘주가지 샘지.
샘베세.
거가시 샘주. 라다 투데지 샘지 요 거가시 샘주 그래서. 나도 소리. 다만 샘 바지 이런 거 중에 그래서 나오는데. 그래.
지금 대시도가. 재밌는 거 만들어.
생각만 다시 봤어.
여와도 매겨 로마다.
얼마든 샘주가지 내지. 뭐 대리 주중에 개와도 뭐 개와 얼마든 주중에 대리다 다 다른 것도 남자야 돼. 그 주중에 내려 왔어.
어디?
다 그냥 그런 식이 저러. 나만 베레타고도 살 그런 식. 그런 거 제네데 직진아 아주 그래. 대리대 다 밑에 개와도 뭐 개와 레 개와도 뭐 개와 간 사중에 렌드에 밑에 왔어. 이런 거다 다시 해야 돼. 저는 같이 미리 빠져서 이거요. 그래 변나. 야. 근데
그래 다 아니시다.
개와 가서 개와도 뭐 개와 죽중에 렌드나 아니 내 차로다. 셈바도 차로다. 근데 저는 암주 투네. 암주 미가 나바가 출로로 전에 야포요를 했으면 저 암주 투가 때네. 근데 상영가 취재가 어떻선. 근데 암주 투가 다 때 간지 개와 주중에 셈을 해도 말했어.
So yeah, so it is like Andrea said, it has the function of engaging the mind in virtue, non-virtuous, unspecified actions, right? So instead then, the mind that makes you to think, of studying Buddhism, or or engaging in virtuous action, does that mind have the function of engaging in the mind in virtue, or non-virtue, or unspecified actions? If it has, then it is the intention, right?
I mean, mind, I agree, but I feel like then you have to admit that the actions that are intentions, so intention as an action, is an unintended action. Because all actions are either virtuous, non-virtuous, or unspecified, right, neutral. Mm-hmm. So it is an action. It's one of those three, but you didn't intend to have the intention. It was an unintentional act. So therefore intention is an unintended act.
I think maybe there, when you're talking about actions that are intentions versus intended actions, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
So intentions there is not so much in terms of, perhaps it's talking about the label, intention itself, not so much as the functional aspect that you're referring to.
The action that's an intention means like the thought, I will.
Right.
I
the
will,
mental action of the
do
mind.
This thing.
Right. So actions that are intentions are the mental actions of the mind.
That's right.
Mental actions that engage the mind, that
Yeah.
have the function of engaging the
Yeah.
mind.
So that's the thought. Like
Right, that's the thought.
I will do this thing, whatever it is, good, bad, or evil. And then.
The intended actions are the body and actions of the body in speech that follow
But
that.
still,
mental
that first
thought,
one,
right?
the mental act of intention itself is an act.
Yes.
It is an action. So it has to be either good, bad, or neutral. And since it's an action, it has to either be an intended action or an unintended action. And if it were an intended action, you would have an infinite regress where everything would never stop. So you have to say it's an unintended action. Intention itself is an unintended action.
So then you would have to say then that raises the question of karma itself, doesn't it?
So that, I think, would be the action that is in intention. That would be the action that is intention.
Yeah.
So there's intention has the two types.
Yeah.
The action that are intention and intended actions,
That's
right?
right.
So if it's intention, that itself, if that is intention, then it has to be that intention, right?
Yeah.
So it has to, because it cannot be intended action. If it's intended action, then if you go further down,
It has to be
it has to be physical or verbal actions.
Yeah, that's right.
So it can only be intention. If it's mental, it can only be intention.
Action that are intention.
Yeah,
And we
actions
are
are
agreeing on
intentions.
that. I'm just saying that
It's not unintended. No, we're not agreeing that it's unintentional action. Unintentional action.
any action that happens, like if you do some action, it has to be either intended or unintended. Is that correct?
Cannot be unintended.
There is
How
no.
can you have an
so-
unintended action?
Yeah, it cannot be
So
unintended.
there can be unintended. There. Okay, let's raise that question then. Let's ask Geshe. Is there such a thing as unintended action? I think there is.
마산대 저어야겠어.
태야 내 마음을 보지. 내 시야가 마사. 시야가 내 마사. 내 시야가 내 사이 마사. 또 사바야마다 그렇게 제시하거든요.
Action, yes, there can be action without intention.
Okay.
But give us an example then.
그다음 나도 들어봐 고만자로 가서 네 태는 미시거나 엄청 곱다 세. 세선 사바야마다 너무 세다.
But then the action at that point, the intended action at that point is walking, not to kill, right?
Yeah.
So that's a byproduct of the intention of walking. That's not an unintended action.
Oh, I think you lose this argument.
The action of killing had no intention behind it. It was just the action of stepping.
내 시야바를
What was that?
He was saying like walking, when you accidentally step on a bug while you're walking, you don't intend to kill the bug, but you perform the action of killing the bug. So it's an unintended action, but she's saying the intention is to walk. So killing the bug is a byproduct of the intention to walk, so therefore it's an intended action.
No, I'm
There
saying the
was no
walking
intention of
itself is
killing.
intended action.
Walking
Yeah.
But
The
then
intended
killing,
action there,
but
the action from the
he's not talking
perspective.
about walking, he's talking about killing the bug.
No,
Why walking?
we're talking about the action itself, right? Which is action, which is literally translated from the Sanskrit, which you know better than I, as karma, right?
Yeah.
So then from that, the action that is performed by the person, by the being, at that point, is the intended action of walking, isn't it? It's not. I'm going to have this unintended action of killing by the side. That's not on the radar screen at all.
No, that is the main thing we're talking about. Killing
Yeah.
without intention. You didn't have an intention to kill. You only had intention to walk. But while walking, you killed it. So the killing is done. That's action. The killing was done. But did you have intention
So
for
then
that?
you say then
No, you
killing-
didn't have intention
So
for
then
that
you have
killing.
to you have to then analyze what are the 4 steps that need to be complete in order for it to be a killing.
Yes,
Right?
yes, therefore.
First of which
Therefore.
is intention to kill.
No,
by
you don't need to
recognizing-
have that. You don't need to have that.
No, then you have to
You
depend
don't
on
need to have the intention to kill.
Well, then look at liberation upon
No,
that.
it's not a complete action of
Yeah,
killing.
yeah.
It doesn't become complete action
So
of
it
killing.
depends on which kind of action, which kind of
It
motivation.
doesn't become complete action of killing. In order for it to become complete action of killing, that you have to have intention, you have to have a completion, you have to have action, motivation, everything, right? So when you don't have all those things, then it doesn't become a complete killing.
Right?
But
So
it's killing.
Is killing then
It's
considered?
killing, but it's not complete killing.
You either kill or you don't kill. You don't have complete killing.
Oh yeah, there is. You know, when
If
we
it's
talk
killing, it
the-
is complete. It is complete.
No. How do you say? How do you say it's a
If the person
complete?
doesn't kill, it means when the
Right.
body,
내 시야 내
mind,
마음을 가르쳐 세시야 돼.
So when you say it's a killing, you know that there's a complete action and incomplete action, right? You don't have a
it's
motivation.
only considered killing when the body and the mind are separated. That is the definition of killing. Okay, so if there is killing,
So there's
if
no
you think-
difference between killing intentionally and killing unintentionally.
Yeah, we call one murder and
Exactly.
the other one manslaughter.
That's different.
So, but then according to then you have to then.
So you are saying there's no difference in
If
killing
you-
intentionally and killing unintentionally. So killing is
say-
killing.
From the perspective
No, from
of
the
the one
perspective-
being killed,
yeah.
I
From
agree.
the perspective of the person creating that action, right?
It's different.
Well, the mind
That-
is.
There's a difference in the
Otherwise,
heaviness of
if
action.
there were to be
There's the heaviness, the heaviness of karma in doing that. If you kill intentionally, the karma is more heavy. You kill more negative karma versus killing unintentionally.
In both situations, death is the same because the death.
Death is same.
The death that
But
person
intention.
death is the
okay, so
mind
you're
and the
saying
body
in
separate.
killing, which is considered a non-virtue, right?
Of
A
course.
non-virtuous karma, yeah?
Yes.
And so then, in that, you're saying that intention, which is the first step, does not need to be present in
No.
order for that.
No.
It's incomplete. That's what I pointed.
No need.
다 자수하네.
It's incomplete.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
근데 그
Yeah, because you can kill without intention. I didn't have intention to kill. I was just walking and it got killed. So I didn't have that thought of killing. So if I have an intention to kill, then I have to think, I'm going to kill, and then I kill.
So, for example, if you're
No.
saying, well,
I don't have to have that thought. If I have an intention to kill, then I have to have that thought, thinking I'm going to kill, and then I have to kill.
and that's why it's
That's when I would say I have the intention to kill.
And
Otherwise,
then-
if I happen to kill while walking, I would not say I had an intention to kill. No, definitely
You
not.
could use a much simpler example to just say like a spasm of the leg or touching a white hot iron and your arm moves before your brain even feels the pain. So like those are actions,
Well,
but
Exactly, yeah.
no intention.
No intention. Yeah.
Yeah.
no intention, really. If you
have
move
a-
your arm because you touch a hot surface, there's no
Yeah.
intention there?
there's no intention.
No intention.
You mean before that you thought, oh, this is hot, I don't want the suffering of
No.
hot, and that's why
No,
you're thinking?
the way that it works, actually, which they've proven, neuroscientists have proven, the reflex to remove your hand from the stimulus, noxious stimulus that's, will kill you, actually happens before your brain notices any pain.
Yeah,
Before
but are you saying the
experience
mind is the
any pain.
brain then?
I'm saying that I'm saying that before the person
It's
notices or is aware of the sensation, the body already detects like a noxious stimulus. That's
Is it then body
destroying-
consciousness? That's not a mind?
I would say no. I would say no.
Okay, so you're saying that
So-
body consciousness is not one of
Because
the
we
six.
define consciousness as that which knows. If you
Yeah.
don't know it, then how can you say that it's a mind?
So you're saying body consciousness is not one of the
No,
six
no, no,
consciousness.
no.
I'm
Body
saying that
consciousness-
before you know that there's pain, if you don't know that there's pain there, how can you
What is pain?
say it knows?
What is pain?
The feeling of pain.
Feeling of pain. Oh, pain is feeling of pain.
It's a feeling. Pain is a
Yeah.
feeling.
It's a feeling.
If okay, so then
Yeah.
if this example is not suitable for you, then how about a leg spasm?
Mhm.
Let's
what
say you
about
have a
this?
spasm and your leg just starts moving.
Mhm.
You could even be unconscious when that happens. It's an action.
That's a different example.
Yeah, but it's an action.
It's just a good example.
There's no intention.
Actually, without intention.
Yeah, that's true because
I mean,
you
there are
could
a
put
lot of
someone in a
things.
coma and then just physically induce that body to move by putting shocks in it or just
Yeah, you don't
like
even
that,
need
right?
to do that.
But then
Even
is
some-
that then an intentional action of that mind? No, it's not.
Right, so
That's like you moving a sleeping person's body and say that was an action of the
no,
person's
that's not what I'm
moving.
saying. I'm saying you don't need to shock anybody. There are people who have spasms
But it's not speaking
Where-
purely the physiological level, right?
where a limb will move by
Yeah, so
itself
then-
without their intention. There are people who have like disorders that cause like their arm to move like this,
Mm-hmm.
or people with Parkinson's disease, for example. They don't intend to like move their body like that, but they can't control it. It happens unintentionally. So I mean, there are many cases for unintentional action. I mean, it exists. It's like commonly accepted in the world, and I have no reason to doubt that it's unintentional. I don't think people make that up and pretend to move like that on purpose.
Okay, anyway. Then all
No, fascinating.
Good debate.
good debate. No,
Good debate.
there's no. Maybe we can start with debate class.
Zoba. Mazoba.
Relation masoba. Let's start on majeba. There are karma many different ways. Anyway, okay, thank you. We start.
Thank you.
It's good, the debate.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Page 35.
Then maybe a little short.
Ali the
Oh, yeah.
Where we at?
One second.
Talk about phenomena, like maybe say the contact, they talk about when they talk about mental consciousness,
Yeah.
and when it contact with the phenomena, then it
that you
It arises. I mean, what's that phenomenon? Is it phenomenon like a thought?
You mean in relation to the feeling or?
Feeling or anything, like all those things, like when they talk about six consciousnesses, when they contact with, like a contact, for example, with feeling. With feeling. So what is that phenomenon? What phenomenon means there?
그때는 저예요. 저였거든요. 저였어서 이기 시작을 저 영화죠. 근데 영화는 그냥 그런 유든 좀 채워라. 유든 가라 있어. 채석이 유든.
그나 배차나 지난기 미식 수준 돈이 수계도 모아는 돈에 셈나까지 맞아 정도 왔. 근데 이게 저도 뭐 이게 되더라고.
그때 맞았다지 또 미식이라. 그래서
이식을 한 사람도 상담되는데 지금 셈 찍으면 막 썸 지금 셈 이해를 지금 샤워지 예지 코니 때문에 셈 맞고 근데 샤워 코야 이게 이게 들어왔어.
So in the case of the mental consciousness, it will be the thought. So the mental consciousness cannot, in a context like the table or thing like the eye consciousness can see the table, so it can be the object of the eye consciousness. So for the mental consciousness, it has to be the thought. So you have different thoughts in your mind, right? By thinking something, then you can feel happy. By thinking something, you can feel unhappy. Yeah, so when you come in contact with that kind of thought, with a pleasant thought, then you feel happy. With come in contact with the unpleasant thoughts, then you feel unhappy.
내가 계속 무지 지나가 두자에 나와나 데리터나 지나게 돼 상담에 그것도 잘 나서 데려다 냈으면 맞아 오는데 그건 나가야 돼 되게 들어.
So, for example, yesterday somebody said bad word to you, right? And today you think about that bad word that somebody said, that thought, because you think about that thought, and then you feel unhappy. So, oh, that person said very bad to me, and with that thought, then you feel unhappy today. So yeah, so the object is the thought, that somebody said such and such bad thing yesterday.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I actually had the same question on page 16 where it talks about the 6 minds, and the 6th mind is mental primary consciousness. In the way that you just explained that makes it sound like it's one of the 51 mental factors, not one of the 6 primary minds. Because you're involving discrimination when you talk about someone said something bad yesterday.
Yes.
And I re-feel that today. I need to bring in discrimination for that feeling to come. So I need a mental factor, not a primary mind. And on page 16, when it asks, what is mental primary consciousness? It is an individual knower that is supported by the mind and observes phenomena. And in the other primary minds, it talks about observing an object, observing taste, observing odor, observing sound, and observing form, which are all clear to me. I can see form, I can hear sound, I can smell odor, and I can taste.
Yep.
But I can't understand what observing phenomena is. And because it is one of the 6 minds, I was interested in getting a more detailed answer to what that answer actually means of observing phenomena.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
조심 투교라. 조심 투교. 나 온샤데 이시세. 나 온시에 돼서 유 소소라지 더 유 가가 연구가 되게 싫어. 베나다 더 루시기 때문에 그래서 초월 가서디 렉처를 연구하라서. 근데 이시기 때문에 그래서 소소기 그래서 이시기 최 또고요. 또고서 너무 남겨서 내가 갈라도 되지 않아. 왜냐면 그 되지는 않아. 안 돼요 왜? 쇼다 줍시.
page 14.
Mental primary consciousness?
Down at the bottom, yeah.
이식이다.
Observes phenomena, the phenomena true, so it's mainly
추가가 또 추가
뭐 이식이 취어가래. 취어 또 거서. 또 거서 우리 가서 봐.
또 그래.
또 쓰나 말에. 루시기 되니 더 가서 리저 또 쓰라.
다들 이식이 추에 추나 역 그런 게 있더라고요. 또 그랬어. 여기 추 남자도
저좀
In that
두기.
case, it's talking about mental phenomena, even though it doesn't say mental. In most cases, it's referring, when I've seen that in context of the mental consciousness, the mind, and its object, it says true, right? Which is just phenomena, but it's understood to be a mental phenomenon. So that is something, an object that is only observed or only engaged by the mental consciousness. That's the way it's been that's the way it's been presented in other semi-texts.
Oh, okay. So you're saying it is the mental phenomena.
Yeah.
And
Observes
so it will be the thought itself.
Right.
That am I clear to you? The phenomena here.
A daydream is phenomena?
하나만 가능한도 얘들 그런 거
Yeah,
보면
daydream would be a mental phenomenon. It would be considered a mental phenomenon.
So it's not just phenomena, but it's rather a mental phenomena. So any kind of thought.
싸움도 간가 대시에도 가서 그냥 가서 직접 대응하도 쟤네도
Any thoughts or any kind of memories, or recollections, so that you had from yesterday, like the example that we talked about earlier. Somebody said bad thing that you think about that today, and then because of that you feel unhappy. So that's the unhappiness that comes in association with that primary mind, the mental consciousness.
전반다 오신고 감정 말 대시에서
So that thought doesn't come, doesn't come in association with other minds like the sense consciousness. It only comes with the mental consciousness.
대중이 가서 남도 사람들은 가끔 샤워 텐데게도 어떻게 내려오고 싶은지 이시에.
So something that we remember from what we did or experienced yesterday, like that kind of thought. The object of mental consciousness.
도중은 다른 통고에 말 고고에 말 이렇게 말 가끔 샤워 가서.
What somebody said yesterday, you can only remember today. You can't hear today, right? Somebody said that, although it was in a word, but what you think now, when you think about it now, is only thought. You don't really hear the sound. Can't hear it. You can only think about it.
지난 가다 내가 강철 지금 데리다가 경계로 나도 지금 통하고 딱 데리시.
So whatever you saw, whatever you smelled or touched, or whatever you did there yesterday, is all in the memory now. So today, when you think about it, it's just a memory. So that's the mental consciousness. That's the mental phenomena that's observed by the mental consciousness.
Okay.
Yeah, so something like that. But if we study or read more and more, then it becomes clearer and clearer to us.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Now it's stop. No more question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Page 39?
Yeah, just go to slowly. I have to do some of the just short.
39. The Thanksgiving mandala? Fast track? Okay.
Abridged.
Go fast. Not skipping.
No, skipping. Skipping. Abridged version.
So which one are we skipping?
Just
We're going
mandala.
mandala?
Yeah, do the mandala.
Okay. Sashi Boki Dushi Mekotam Rurak Benji Inbek Empagi Sanyi Shingu